Today we're speaking about mental health. We're talking about depression and suicide. What are the signs that as a community we need to look out for in our families, in the workplace, in the church, wherever we are? What are the signs that we need to watch out for? Ukuthi umuntu menza kanje, then perhaps they are depressed.
Look, I want to first start off by saying that, suicidality as a concept forms part of a lot more mental health issues than just depression. And, we talk about it a lot in the context of depression. Because that's what we mostly have access to, which is a great way to start, and it's a great conversation starter. And I'm happy that, people are starting, well, not starting, I think we really are engaging in that. However, there's a vast number of, mental health care issues.
Tell us.
So, for an example, from the end of the spectrum in terms of psychosis, so somebody who maybe has schizophrenia, somebody who's maybe in a psychotic episode of bipolar, could experience suicidality. It's part of a delusion. So there will be a voice that tells them to hurt themselves, to harm themselves, or they will see danger in front of them, and it feels like the only kind of way that they can escape the danger is if they hurt or harm themselves. So that's like one end of the spectrum. And then, in terms of the other end of the spectrum, which is more depression, if we think about depression, we can think about it in two ways. We have a unipolar depression, which would just be the downside of depression. And then you'd have a bipolar depression, which is what we would then call, somebody who has extremely high highs and then extremely low lows. And that kind of forms part of, a kind of like almost chemical imbalance in their brains, but is also exacerbated by, life circumstances. So if we think about a unipolar depression, a lot of the time people will withdraw, they'll start to isolate themselves, they'll become more negative in the way that they speak, they become more irritable, so a child kind of drops something and say they will a lot of the time feel quite low on most days. It becomes harder to get out of bed. They're either sleeping a lot or they're struggling to stay asleep or fall asleep. Food is also something that we look at. So how much somebody is eating. Are they eating too much or are they eating too little? So appetite could be affected. So there's a lot of things that can be affected. Negative kind of thinking, negative self-talk. They become more hopeless about life. Everything is kind of doom and gloom. And it's hard to get out of it. I know a lot of people will just be like, okay, just, snap out of it. Like, life is good, But for those people, they're really in a very dark place and they can't see the light that's outside. I'm going to give this description because I found it very helpful. Somebody once described their depression as them being in a glass room, right? And they can see that there are people on the outside and they can see that, people are knocking, trying to get in, but they just can't get out of this bubble that they're in. And it feels very, very dark and they're struggling to find a door out of it. And I found that to be a really great description because people can be like, but I was here for you. I asked you, you shut me out. I listened, and that can be the experience of depression. Even though there are people around, you can feel like you're alone. And so that would be the unipolar. And then, like I said, the bipolar, they would have both of those. So,
very low and very high.
Yeah. So on the high end, they feel like they can, achieve anything and they do really, really great things. They're invincible, sometimes they engage in risky behavior, going out more, drinking more, the use of substances. And then once they hit their lows, it becomes the darker side.
And so what would be, is there a cause to depression, or it's a disease that attacks our minds?
Plenty causes. Some of them are just genetic, right?
Okay.
So like I said, chemical imbalances, which is why medication is very important, and this is why we have psychiatry to assist us. And then also just interpersonal life difficulties as well. You know, we also have people who really struggle interpersonally. They struggle to regulate their own emotions. And, you know, those people kind of, they don't know how to. And so they kind of need to be taught, like, how do you regulate your emotions? How do you deal with life problems? Yeah. And so lots of different, but I think I would say a lot of it is, you know, societal, our norms in terms of how do we view it, how do we talk about it, how do we teach our children to deal with their own emotions, you know, also how much time do we have that we can dedicate to that. And then also a very big genetic component. So if there is a history of mental health issues in your family, and lots of people don't even know that. You know, we have lots of patients in the hospital. We'll do like psychoeducation, and they'll be like, hey Naman, that sounds like malume, or that sounds like whoever. And we've kind of like just normalized it. Malume, so
Yeah.